Yo, what's happening everybody, King GBL here, and welcome back to a brand new Go Bat Like video. Today I'm going to be showcasing pokedaxi's team in the Open Great League. I was watching pokedaxi stream yesterday, where he was getting coached by Panic, and this is a team that Panic recommended for pokedaxi. It seemed to be doing pretty well for him, so I wanted to try it out for myself, and I actually went on like a 6 or 7 game winning streak immediately with this team. This team is Pelipper in the lead, with Galarian Stunfisk and Trevenant in the back. What I like to do with this team is, if it's a positive or neutral lead for Pelipper, stay in the match and look to basically RPS the backline. Whenever you're using a Pokemon like Trevenant, you really do need alignment. It's super alignment based. If this Pokemon gets lined up to a Noctowl, it's game over instantly. Unless of course the opponent has super low health on the remaining Pokemon. So where possible, I like to try and win lead with Pelipper. If not, you go for Galarian Stunfisk safe swap, which will hopefully draw out a Medicham. So you pretty much have answers to Medicham in the front and the back. The only teams that I had a big problem with while using this team were things like Dragonair and Dragonite leads, which I've seen surprisingly a lot. Of course, teams with Lantern, Noctowl and Medicham in the wrong order can be quite difficult. It's pretty RPS. But I think Pelipper is quite a safe Pokemon. It's only really weak to Lantern in the meta, but it has a lot of play across the board. Some Pokemon that you would think are hard counters for Pelipper don't really hard counter it at all. Things like Galarian Stunfisk actually lose to Pelipper. In the 2-shielding scenario, Registeel can actually lose that match if you get ahead in energy. And Bastiodon, of course, is a pretty bad match for Pelipper because it is so bulky. But if you're ever in a situation where you get a huge overfarm, you can hit it with super effective Weather Balls and look to take it out. Like I said, you can hit it with Noctowl with Shadow Ball, but the Weather Balls add up a lot faster, and that's one of the really good things about this Pokemon. It is only really just Lantern that you have to watch out for, which completely walls it. So hopping into the battles, guys, thank you very much to Panic and pokedaxi for the team. And if you're new to this channel and you're interested in Pokemon Go PvP, hit the like button and subscribe, and thank you very much for the support in the videos. We just hit 2,500 subscribers yesterday, so big thank you to everybody who's been part of the community for a while, and everybody who's new and subscribing. So this is an interesting match. This is a loss for Pelipper, so I decided to catch, hopefully, a resisted Moonblast on Galarian Stunfisk. This thing just absolutely wrecks Cresselia. The opponent swaps into Charizard, which is not really an answer for this, especially up energy, or in an even sort of energy scenario. The opponent shields up the first one because of course it'll absolutely one-shot them. The only way the opponent can win this match is by landing a Blast Burn or for me to shield their baits. That's not going to happen, folks. We are not shielding this thing and we're going to look to take it out. I mean, worst case scenario, if they do take us out, I can come in with Pelipper and look to Weather Ball it. Like, it wouldn't have been the end of the world. It would have been very awkward, but the opponent sees the writing in the wall after that one. I think they had their fill of that match and they're on to the next one. So hopping into the next one ourselves, we have a very positive lead with Medicham. The opponent swaps out to Lickitung, and I automatically assume that this is going to be a Noctowl in the back. So I think what I like to do here is ship it, and I was going to swap out to Stunfisk, and then I sort of realised this, okay, maybe it is Noctowl. So I think what I do is absorb the first move. As you're seeing here, it does a decent little chip, about 30% into Pelipper, and we're going to look to YOLO the Hurricane. If we get this through, we can definitely farm it down and just realign. Sometimes whenever opponents swap out, they're trying to get you to come in with a Pokemon that their front Pokemon can beat. So like if we had come in with Galarian Stunfisk, they would have just countered us down with Medi, had a ton of energy, Ice Punches for the Trevenant, and then Bastiodon in the back, which would have been very, very tricky. Now at this point, we've given up a shield, but we can hydrate the Bastiodon before we leave, and we can come in with Galarian Stunfisk, which will just absolutely poop it down. In comes Trevenant versus Medicham, and I think the opponent's not even running a good moveset here. If you're running Medicham in the lead, you always run Ice Punch, and I think in general running Ice Punch is better than Power Punch. At that point, I just no-shield the first one. I know I can live the first one. Generally, if you can live a move without getting fast move down, you can just let it go. I think, because people do like to bait quite a lot. I'm around 2500 elo currently, and people do love baiting, so I generally think that's quite a good rule. If you can survive a move and they can't fast move pressure you down after, it is probably worth no-shielding at times. Now, speaking of no-shielding, we're going to no-shield the Stone Edge because I know I can live this move. We were playing this matchup quite a lot on a recent cup, so I know that matchup quite well by now, and in comes Noctowl. Now, unfortunately, I do fall for CMP. I do think this is IV dependent CMP as well, but they do land a Shadow Ball. Now, this match can be flipped by Galarian Stunfisk, this match can be flipped by Noctowl, depending on the attack IVs. So we'll see what the opponent wants to do. I know they're not at the Shadow Ball here, so I'm going to fire off the Rock Slide, and at this point, I'm going to force the opponent to make a decision. They're on super, super low health. I can live another one of these, no problem at all, and it's going to be very, very difficult for them to wing attack down. We're going to look to go for another Rock Slide just before they get to the move. And if the opponent wants to take switch advantage, they're going to have to shield here. And I'm going to make sure that if they have to shield, they're going to have to shield twice, because we're going to snipe it with Pelipper. We farmed up a ton of energy, and that's the amazing thing about swapping out, keeping energy on one of your Pokemon. You can snipe and get both shields off the opponent, or just basically force them out. Now the opponent's coming back into Quagsire, which is a pretty strong indication that they don't have a great answer to Pelipper. Now at this point, unfortunately, they can farm us down, and they do come into Venusaur, so they get the farm through, and this is just game over for the opponent. Trevenant absolutely walls this thing off. Of course, Sludge Bombs will hit like an absolute truck, It won't quite one-shot us, but it'll do enough damage to put us in a dangerous range. The opponent no shields a Shadow Ball, and they realise it's game over and hit that top left button. So in that situation, if you're up 2-1 shields, you just go for the move. You don't go for the bait because there are win conditions to call the bait, and you're seeing the opponent try to play out their win condition. Now, a very terrible lead. We have 2 answers to this in the back. I like to go straight Earthquake on this thing, but the opponent's staying in and trying to farm up. So I'm thinking, is there a chance that you're trying to catch here? Like, why are you waiting until I get up to the Earthquake before throwing? They do come in with a Registeel, which was pretty insane. I'm on like almost 100 energy and they're coming into Reggie. It makes me think, bro, are you just triple weak to this Pokemon? I actually go for the Rock Slide bait. My thinking is they're definitely going to want to shield this thing instead of just letting it go down. They do let it go, which is a nice call by the opponent, but I'm perfectly happy with this, because I know that they're weak to this Pokemon, and I know that I can farm this down. It's going to get super close. They get to these in 15 turns. I actually went through 16 turns to farm it down, so the opponent would have been just at the move. So maybe they want to, I'm not sure why, they must have got some lag or something, or weren't fully tapping. Somebody was asking me how do I tap so fast in a recent video. I actually tap with 2 thumbs. You can see my pointers on screen here. You can see I'm just tapping with 2 thumbs usually, so that's something to keep in mind. A turn is half a second, and 2 turns of course is 1 second. So like a 5-turn move is 2.5 seconds, etc. So you don't have to tap super fast, but generally if it's a 1-turn move, I like to tap with both fingers or both thumbs. So that's something to keep in mind. And we're going to go for the Seed Bomb. The opponent seems to be just getting absolutely RPS'd into oblivion, and I make an interesting call here. I'm thinking, okay, if this is a Thunderbolt, this will get me down to like 20% health, and it turns out to be a Noctowl. Was not expecting that from the opponent. They know that I've got a Pelipper, right? So they know their Lantern is really useful for that Pokemon. They know that Trevenant is a terrible matchup for that, so I think if I shield this, Trevenant has to be really strong against something in the back, otherwise the opponent would swap out. I guess it turns out not to be the case, and sometimes reading your opponent can backfire, because in this situation, we're really relying on the fact that a Seed Bomb may KO this thing. This Seed Bomb is going to come super close. Will we take it out, or will they get off the Sky Attack? We do just about take it out, and the Lantern's on 1 HP. So I was making a read on the opponent's play, and unfortunately they were just misplaying, and I sort of misread the misplay. So here comes Whimsicott. This thing can do a lot of damage, but they swap it instantly, and in comes Sableye. We're going to look to chip this, and put it into pretty close to Rock Slide range. What I want to do here is basically Rock Slide this thing, and come out with maybe a little bit of energy, and look to basically fire off a couple of moves on the Whimsicott. They'll get me to a range where a Grass Knot can definitely one-shot, so I'm just going to fire off this move, and hope to take it out before they get to another foul play. And even if they don't, they're not going to be able to Fairy Wind down. Fairy Wind is resisted on the Steel type, and they can't farm us down, so no matter what, they have to throw a move, so this is not going to be worth a shield here. The opponent is waiting down their switch timer, and that's going to give us a chance to hopefully realign if they do decide to swap out. We're going to go ahead and fire off the Rock Slide, and the opponent, they left pretty instantly, so we can probably get off 2 if they allow us to here. We're going to farm up to the next one. They throw just before we reach the move, which I think is correct, and at this point, both of our Pokemon are quite good against this thing. We'll come into Pelipper because it's more obvious. We're going to wait down our timer, once again, just to make sure we're not locked in against like a Lantern, and there it is. There's Lantern, there's Trevenant, and there's the top left. The opponent had enough of that match and had their fill of it, and that's a good game. They're going to hop into the next match, and so are we. I did really like this team, and we went, like I said, 5-0 in the first set. We won the first game that we played with this in the last set. I was going pretty badly. In my previous set, I went 1-4, and the one match I won was whenever I started using this team. So we're currently in a 6-game winning streak, and we have a Dragonite. Now, here's what I think you should try to do against this thing. Go for the Weather Ball. The opponent is definitely not shielding the Weather Ball, it's resisted, and you need shields for Dragonite for pretty much everything. Now you can see that those wing attacks were adding up, and so were the Dragon Breaths. So I try to catch a Dragon Claw, which is not going to be great, because I'm going to be forced to invest a shield. So I think in that situation right there, what I should try to do is basically land the Weather Ball. They'll think, oh, it's just a Weather Ball, I'll let it go, and then fight for Switch. I think that's the best way to play here. The opponent's coming into Jellicent. They shield up the first one. I think that was a really good opportunity to go for a bait, because it would have forced the opponent to throw energy and not overfarm. We're going to get off this next move, and that's going to put them very low. So 2 Earthquakes, of course, would take out the Jellicent, but now at this point, they're able to overfarm and maybe look to threaten Pelipper with a Shadow Ball. We're going to come back in with Pelipper, and this is looking very tough. We kind of need Pelipper to do a lot here, so I may even have to consider shielding this thing. I think if I shield this once, I might try and commit to the farm down, or go for a last second move. They go for the bait here, which is super annoying, which once again forces me to throw energy, and makes it a little bit more awkward for us on the other side. So we're just hoping for Trevenant sweep here at this point. They actually go for a really nice catch on Deoxys, The opponent is over-farming a little bit, and they're just making sure that they may be able to reach a move. That was a really nice play. I'm going to bank a Weather Ball because I know that I basically can live 2 Psycho Boosts off this thing. They still have a shield, so pretty much what I need to do is get rid of this and get off a move on Dragonite. The annoying thing here is I would love to commit to this farm down, but the opponent, I think they're going to be able to get to another move. They cannot counter us down here. We can live those 2 moves very, very comfortably. And as you're about to see, I'm forced to CMP. Now, if I am able to get the farm down here, I can throw off 2 moves on the other thing, and that's looking to be good games well played. But unfortunately here, they can farm us down, and this is just going to be the perfect amount of farm to get them to a Dragon Claw, because I CMP us on the Weather Ball, and super unlucky. I think in that situation again, I'm going to look to chip it, double shield, and try and farm it down. I think that's the only way to play that match out, in order to not get RPS'd. The opponent was using a very interesting team. Their whole team is pretty much weak to Frostlass, which it's not the most common thing in the world, but definitely even like a Sableye is not going to be that pleasant for that thing in the back, for that team in the back. So it's not a team I would run, but the opponent seems to be enjoying it, and they played well to win that last match. Now, Abomasnow, it's a bit of an awkward Pokemon for this team. Energy Ball will one-shot, Energy Ball does a ton of damage to Stunfisk, and of course Trevenant does not enjoy Ice-type moves, or any moves in general. So we're going to look to bait this and keep firing off as many moves as possible. I wanted to go for the safe play of back-to-back Water Balls, just in case they shielded it here, and we're going to look to CMP in the final move, which will look to get rid of them, or look to get their final shield. The opponent is shielded up, and they go for CMP. Now at this point, what I've been preaching to you is what I should have done. RPS the opponent, which means rock, paper, scissors, by the way. I get that comment sometimes. What does RPS mean? It means rock, paper, scissors, right? I've got rock, they've got scissors. I should just take that match and then make them come into something, but instead what's going to happen is we're going to go for a resisted mud shot down, and we basically just need to hope there's no Noctowl in the back. If there's a Noctowl in the back, it's pretty much an insta-loss for me. The opponent comes into Medicham, so at this point I'm thinking, wow, it's just Noctowl, isn't it? So I'm going to swap out to Trevenant, in comes Noctowl, and it doesn't matter if I have 2 shields, I'm not winning this matchup. I think that really speaks to the fact that if you're running Trevenant, you should try to take switch advantage almost always. Switch advantage with this Pokemon is so important, because if you get this lined up onto the correct Pokemon, it's just deadly. So we're going to hop into the next match. The opponent was going to win that one easily, and it's Pelipper versus Quagsire. The opponent goes for a catch, and we're going to go for a Weather Ball. Now, I was super tempted to YOLO the Hurricane, but I tend to think that whenever Pokemon swap in, they don't like to get one-shot, so I decided to store some energy, put this into Rock Slide range, go for a bit of an overfarm with Galarian Stunfisk, and then look to come out with energy for the next Pokemon. We're going to farm up to close to 100 energy. I think I threw an alignment right there, because I was getting up to 100, so that's absolutely fine. I don't expect the opponent to shield here, which makes the timing not super important, so we'll see what the opponent decides to come back in with. We can threaten a lot of damage with this Earthquake. The opponent insta-froze, they're an insta-throwing Andy here, and this should look to close to take us out. Now what I do is a very nice play here. If you're ever in this situation, even if you're not quite at the Earthquake, just threaten it, because the opponent may not be keeping count, and if you're in 7, even professional players in the Pokemon Go regionals will shield up a Rock Slide sometimes because they're not sure on counts. In comes Lantern. This team is just ABA weak to Trevenant, and that's why I've been talking about Trevenant quite a lot recently. This is a Pokemon that's not getting a lot of respect. It got nerfed this season and people just are not expecting it. You've seen from probably like 2 or 3 of my last 5 or 6 videos, I've been running Trevenant and talking about how good this Pokemon is now, especially with Carbink coming into the meta. All of the Mud Boys, ground types, grass types, and everything that beats Carbink, and Carbink itself, all have a super negative match against Trevenant, so I think this Pokemon is going to be quite strong next season, and I think having it in the back and forcing alignment is going to be super strong. Even in this current season, you're seeing that Trevenant is core breaking teams. Now, this game right here, once again, we're just going to go for the RPS. The opponent let the move through. I'm not going to fall for CMP here. The opponent tried to CMP me on the Weather Ball. Not going to let that happen. We're just going to shield it up and farm down. So we're down shields, but we're actually, you know, getting in a much better position here now. In comes Lickitung. Now, I've seen a lot of these teams with a Lickitung and a Dark type, or like Deoxys Double Dark. Those were probably the most rough teams to deal with. So sometimes when you see Lickitung in the back, it is just Noctowl. So I think in this situation, as crazy as it might sound, sometimes coming into Trevenant and going for Seed Bomb is not a bad play, because it's pretty much getting into Seed Bomb range. You're preserving some health on your Stunfisk, but what we're doing here is just going for huge overfarm, just in case it is Noctowl in the back. So we have energy for that thing, and we're probably going to have to eat another move, so I'm going to go ahead and fire off another Rock Slide. I probably should have Earthquaked it there, but that's absolutely fine. In comes a Abomasnow, so this is just super tricky. Again, like, this is just a core breaker for the team, especially Shadow, it just wrecks. So what I tried to do here, I think I should have forced them to throw, but instead I'm going to have to eat the Weather Ball on Trevenant, which is not going to be very comfortable. I think no matter what way I played this, I was going to lose because they're outpacing to Weather Balls. Maybe if I had caught the move, that could have worked, but having ABA Ice is just kind of weird. I mean, there's not a ton of fire in the meta, but like people just don't respect it. Like you're seeing a lot of these teams in Great League currently that just don't really make any sense, and you're just getting RPS by them. It's the sort of team that if you run it yourself, you're going to get RPS'd. I don't really like those ABA teams. I just don't think they work that well. I guess it's like, oh, you know, this is confusing the opponent, but I don't personally like it. You're of course double weak to a midi in the back, and you're ABA weak to fire. So not a personal big fan of that team, but it is what it is. So we're playing this match out against Azumarill here. I'm looking to go for the Hurricane. The opponent was shielding, which was quite surprising. We're going to YOLO this next Hurricane, which is going to look to get them very low. And at this point, I can probably Weather Ball and Wing Attack down. I'm thinking that they might have something that's weak to Pelipper, so I do want to realign here if possible. And it does happen to be Trevenant. So this is looking a little bit tough. It's a good thing I swapped out of here. These rock slides add up. It's a really good tip for you, and this is something that it's so hard to think of this on the spot, but this is something to keep in mind if you're using Galarian Stunfisk and you're using a Trevenant, or you're facing off against a Trevenant. So the rock slides do about 36% to the Trevenant, but an Earthquake will do 43% or almost close to 44% depending on IVs or whatever. So if you can get off 2 moves, get off an Earthquake and a rock slide. I know it might seem crazy Earthquaking a Trevenant, but the 1 rock slide, 2 rock slides don't KO, but it gets it super low. But if you rock slide and Earthquake it, it's pretty close to knocking it out. So that's something to keep in mind. The opponent fails to go for a catch, and they're going to play at their win condition here, which is very smart by the opponent. They no-shield that, which is definitely their win condition. Now, I realize I need to commit to the fast move down, so I don't throw that next move, and I just decide to shield and Wing Attack down. If you're ever in that situation where the opponent's getting close to 2 moves, and their health's getting super low and they still have a shield, you just go ahead and go for the fast move beatdown. By throwing a move, you're giving them extra turns of energy, so you don't want to do that. So yeah, obviously in that situation, I didn't realize that about the Earthquake. It's been quite some time since I used Stunfisk, but that is something to keep in mind, and we have a very positive lead here, Swampert. Now, Hydro Cannons really add up on this thing, so what I'm going to look to do is probably look to threaten the Weather Ball. If I'm not mistaken, Swampert versus Pelipper is an IV-dependent charge move priority. CMP, that means charge move priority. Once again, I see that question a few times. So basically, whichever Pokemon's got the highest attack will win charge move priority. And in this case, usually Pelipper wins it, but if it's an attack-weighted Swampert, they can win it. Now, the opponent comes into Clefable, and I thought that this was quite interesting. And I sort of started to relay something. I decided, okay, I'm not going to Earthquake it because I think they're going to let it go. But I also think that they have another Fairy type in the back. That's what I was reading here, Swampert double Fairy. So what I want to do is threaten the Swampert with an Earthquake. I'm going to go for the Rock Slide bait. I think this is a super safe bait, and then we're going to probably look to realign out of here. I want to keep the Stunfisk healthy, because I think that a Fairy safe swap is designed to draw out a Steel type. So I sort of realized that, and I thought, okay, let me just go ahead and realign. Now we're in a very good position here. The opponent will get off a Hydro Cannon. I could shield it and farm it down, but I think they're at 2 moves here, so I think I'll come in with Trevenant. Now the really big difference between Shadow Swampert and normal Swampert is Shadow Swampert can 2-shot the Trevenant, whereas a non-Shadow can't. Shadow Ball coming through. We already have a ton of energy loaded on Stunfisk. Now the opponent's about to make a huge mistake here. Just like I said last game, you need to commit to the farm down, because look what's happening here. I'm now able to shield this and get off the Shadow Ball. It's going to be a CMP, but this means that I've got an Earthquake loaded on Stunfisk. I can look to just basically Earthquake the Swampert, which dumped both of its Hydro Cannons. Or, sorry, it dumped one of its Hydro Cannons. It has another Hydro Cannon loaded. So, like, it's in farm down range. They're forced to throw. Otherwise, I'll take them out. And at this point, we can look to Rock Slide it. So the opponent, they misplayed and gave me a big win condition at that point. Very interesting team. Clefable safe swap with Charizard in the back. Wasn't really what I was expecting. But Stunfisk in the back with energy. Definitely clutched that up for me, and in comes the next one. It's Ninetales. Pretty interesting lead. I sometimes like YOLOing the Hurricane here. I feel like the opponents are actually calling baits quite well with Ninetales. I'm going to farm up a ton of energy and look to start firing off moves here. Do I YOLO the Hurricane? More often than not, Ninetales is letting it go, because they know they can live this move, but we'll see what the opponent does. They do let it go, but at this point, I think this is definitely a safer play, because like 2 Water Balls is roughly the same energy as a Hurricane. And we're going to throw this next move on bad timing, just to make sure that we get the move off. If you guys are wondering about timing, the opponent's using a free turn move, so if you're throwing in between the animation, it allows them not to get any extra damage or energy while you're throwing your moves. So if you throw after 1, 4, or 7, using a 2-turn move versus a free turn move, that'll be optimal so the opponent doesn't get extra energy through. Ice Punch coming through, I know I can live it, and just because they're in the back, I decide to let it go, because oftentimes they have Power Punch if they're in the back. We're going to YOLO the Shadow Ball. I could have just YOLO'd the Seed Bomb at that point, a little bit unnecessary, and in comes Quagsire. We should be perfectly fine here. The only thing is we have to get through the shield first, which is absolutely fine. We're getting pretty low, so they can go straight for Mud Bomb. Now, I wasn't sure if I was just at the move here, so I think what I'm going to look to do is just swap out, just make sure that they can't double Mud Bomb me and take me out. I may have even lived the Mud Bomb, and I actually turned out to be at the move, so this is completely unnecessary. I just know that they're going to have to throw another Mud Bomb, and at that point I'll definitely outpace or win CMP, so that's perfectly fine. At this point we can go for the Earthquake and farm them down, or Seed Bomb them, doesn't really make a difference. So Quagsire versus Trevenant, right? Let's say for example if you swap in your Trevenant to their Quagsire, and it's like even shielding scenario, what they will always do is go for a Stone Edge straight away, and that'll get you down to like 30-40% health. Now sometimes what they like to do is shield up the move. Whenever they go for Stone Edge, they get their Mud Bombs after 4 twice in a row. So that means 7 for the Stone Edge, 4 for the Mud Bomb, and another 4 for the Mud Bomb. Normally for Stone Edge it's 7-6, and normally for Mud Bomb it's 5-4, 5-4. You know, so it's like 7-6, 7-6, 5-4, 5-4. But if they throw the Stone Edge, they get the next 2 Mud Bombs in 4. So that's just something to keep in mind if you're ever in that matchup. If you're trying to play the CMP, just make sure you're CMPing on 4, not 5 on the next 2 moves. So anyway, we're going to take this Pokemon out here. Dragonair lead, like I said, it's a little bit awkward, but we do manage to deal with it, and in comes DD. We should be still okay here, we can definitely live 2 moves. They're going to swap out to Bastiodon, in comes Stunfisk, and this is just RPS for the win. It takes them 7 smackdowns to get to this move. We can easily eat probably 2 flamethrowers here. I'll see if this gets us into the green, oh sorry, into the yellow. It doesn't quite, and at this point I'm happy enough to preserve some health in this thing. We'll look to take the shield or do whatever, and at this point, like, that doesn't even one-shot them, so we can farm it down. Probably get an Earthquake off on the DD. They can throw a move here, it doesn't matter, it's all resisted. And DD versus Stunfisk is not that great, to be honest with you. Of course, Medicham versus Stunfisk is very good, but unless the Medicham throws an Ice Punch, they will get off 2 Earthquakes anyway. But DD is definitely not very good against this thing. We're going to fire off the Rock Slide, and this is going to be good games to the opponent. I'll just come in and snipe with Trevenant at this stage. We've got a Seed Bomb loaded. Wham bam, thank you ma'am, and good night. So yeah, I really enjoyed this team, man. Like I said, pokedaxi's been streaming on YouTube recently, so definitely go check out their stream. Nice little 4-1 set to finish out here. Go check out their stream. Panic, like I said, I'll leave a link to both of them in the description. I'm sure everybody here knows who Pokedaxi is anyway. But yeah, Panic's been giving him really good coaching, and if you want to see some more info on how like a professional player plays this team, I highly recommend checking that out. Thank you very much everybody for watching, hope you enjoyed. If you did, hit that like button, subscribe, turn on notifications, and feel free to join me on social media. I have a Discord community and Twitter, which will be in the description down below as well. Thank you very much for watching, and have a fantastic rest of your day.